So welcome to AI TV. We're broadcasting live from AI Expo Africa 2020 online. This year we are virtual because of COVID, and we are basically having conversations with people all around the world. The great thing about online is we can have people logging in from east, west, north, south, all around the planet. And I think we've had 28 countries at the show so far and over 2,000 registered delegates. So the show's still happening. Day 2 finishes in a couple of hours, but I've been joined today by Nazareen Ebrahim from Socially Acceptable. She's the CEO there. And it's great to welcome you, Naz, to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Nick. I am very great. And I also am happy that I'm joining you today. So this is exciting.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've been talking about one of the great big challenges around this massive new thing called artificial intelligence. I mean, it's not obviously a new thing, it's been around for many decades, but in terms of the current news headlines with artificial intelligence and fourth industrial revolution, ethics and how we're using artificial intelligence has been something that literally you see in the news every day now. But this is something you've chosen to specialize in, Naz, and I think that's a really interesting decision to sort of get into this space. And we were talking to Fred Werner from the AI for Good Summit. He's the organizer. He works at the ITU. And also we had Kay Firth Butterfield at the event today. She was doing the keynote. And, you know, both those two people leading in their fields with things like standards and ethics. And you've jumped into that. So tell us a little bit about you and Socially Acceptable and what you're doing in this AI ethics space, because it's a really fascinating story. Over to you to explain.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to share the story, the behind the scenes story of what's happening at Socially Acceptable. So my journey, I'm by profession a media and communication specialist. So it seems odd for people to see this media and comm specialist now venturing into the AI research space, but also in the conversation around AI. And I get asked that question sometimes. But I think, and we had this conversation before, it's interesting to see the diverse backgrounds that are in getting involved in the field, because that's what we need. We need the diversity and inclusion of all viewpoints. It adds to the depth, but also the tech for good aspect around why AI exists and how it will further develop in the future. With these thoughts in mind, I mean, my long history of being a communications specialist and being a technology communicator has allowed me to develop this particular positioning as of this year really well. So through my interactions with the business community here, being a mentor, facilitator, I managed to get in touch with Kay Firth Butterfield, who did the keynote for the conference this morning, and interviewed her in March this year, just when lockdown hit. We had a discussion and conversation for the Minara Chamber of Commerce, where I was a director on the board at the time, around the AI toolkit for boards of directors and its release. Afterwards, I wrote to her and I said, I'm interested in becoming an AI ethics officer, because in my conversation with her, she made a point about being the world's first chief AI ethics officer. And this was in recent years. And it struck me that was quite odd. Why weren't there more AI ethics officers? Because technology is used primarily to output the needs of what people wish to transact with on a daily basis. But how does it affect them through things like culture, language, religion, and other aspects that make us different? And she said to me, I was very interested in this, and Kay said to me in an email, there's no actual formal qualification for AI ethics people, but what you should start doing, the first thing you need to start doing is build your LinkedIn network around people in the field currently. And there are so many globally, and the network's growing right now. I mean, Nick, here locally in South Africa, you're one of the key people I speak to on a regular basis to learn, to understand the industry. And there are many abroad who I've managed to connect with, people like Hessie Jones, who's a technology communicator in the US. There's Maya Danshaw, Mia Danshaw, who I'm going to tell you more about now, how I got in touch with Kay again. But Mia decided to run a program for women who want to study AI ethics around the mentorship. And this was in April, just after I made the decision to study AI ethics. God said, okay, let me give you a formalized program to do this. And he put it in my path, and I saw it on LinkedIn. I applied. I requested that Kay be my mentor because I had talked to her already, and I was successful in my application. So I was very excited about that.
That's great.
That mentorship opportunity has now translated into an extremely, I would never have dreamed of this kind of development, but the kind of introductions that Kay has been able to allow me, including the knowledge that she's bringing in terms of the work that the World Economic Forum is doing, and allowing me as a mentor to be part of one of the projects. So I was meant to have my onboarding today. That's been moved to next week. So I'll be able to share with people who follow the AI Africa report, Socially Acceptable, news about our involvement with that World Economic Forum project. I think on developing AI guidelines for policies around how government institutes them. So it's been an interesting time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting comment that, I mean, following people like Kay on LinkedIn and people like Fred from the ITU, you've also got people, I mean, Guy Kirkwood from UiPath, I mean, his Twitter feed is like, every tweet is like nuggets of information. But yeah, I think the OECD also have a website that talks about or lists government countries that have national strategies for AI, and obviously ethics plays a part, or should be playing a part of every national strategy. So I think, you know, the very interesting comment that Fred made was that, you know, we're very early on in the stages of standards, and obviously ethics would form part of a standard, or you know, that should be a component of a standard. So I think it's a very exciting time. And Fred made the comment that, you know, when innovation is happening and things are growing rapidly, you don't want to constrain it very early on with standards. That standards actually, he called it about, you know, pre-standards phase. We're in this sort of pre-standards phase at the moment. But I come from a kind of standards background myself, looking at precision, accuracy, and bias in analytical systems. And this is exactly what we have with AI right now. It's a very similar thing that, you know, as you say, it needs to be inclusive. You need to have representative data sets. You need to understand, you know, the accuracy, precision, bias are three different things, and many times they're confused. So yeah, I totally agree with you that, you know, following some of these thought leaders and reaching out to them, they're a lot more accessible than you think, and they're very happy to share knowledge and information with you. So it sounds like you took that decision, and anyone watching this who's thinking of embarking on any form of career, just reach out to people on LinkedIn. I use it every single day, and it's a great resource to make new connections. So what, for you then, do you think we need to be thinking about in terms of ethics? Just to position that, we did a survey with some of the people who've been at the show, and we found that pretty much every business is looking at ethics as part of their AI deployment. Half of them are doing it themselves, and half of them are relying on someone else helping them with that. So is that an area where ultimately you see yourself playing, that you would be like a consultant who would go in? Do you think that's going to be a bigger industry now as we move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good question that you asked, because you're framing what the next 2 to 5 years will ultimately look like in corporations and anyone who's hoping to do work in the space of developing artificial intelligent systems that will more and more impact citizens as a whole. So for me, the particular focus area was understanding two parts. One is the private sector space, where there are organizations who are already invested in these systems or introducing enterprise scale development without first thinking about the implications for the end user. Of course, I mean, with people running a business, it's always the shareholders and the board want to see what the bottom line is impacted whenever you make a decision. But behind that is understanding the implications for positive outcome or negative outcome on the end user. And while those conversations are happening right now, I don't know to what extent and what kind of thinking is happening. Just today, and the conversation is rife on Twitter around clicks making Clicks, the store that sells all kind of beauty products and home care products, making a serious error in putting onto their website images of women with black women's hair, saying that it looked frizzy and tired, as opposed to an image with a white woman's hair showing that it's fine and flat. Now, a simple error like that is what we are facing currently in the world, with the amount of data available to us that hasn't yet been positioned correctly to understand or appreciate the range of cultures, backgrounds, and ethnicities that we have, including indigenous languages and other factors and criteria. So I see our role as being one of the first social tech enterprises in South Africa focused on artificial intelligence ethics to guide the conversation for private corporations, help ask the tough questions, ask the right questions, get all the people who are necessary to the process involved, because sometimes people feel it's only the realm of either the C-suite executives or IT that need to manage this problem. And on the other side is making sure that we as an organization do our best to facilitate positive, healthy, open, transparent dialogue with our leaders in government to ensure that once policy is passed, that it has an integrated approach as possible across the board. That's our goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think the example you gave there, I mean, it's, from a marketing and PR perspective, I mean, that's very clumsy error, essentially.
Absolutely.
But when you start to think that if you make a clumsy error in an algorithm that's repeating and doing many things millions of times a day or a week or even a second, that if you make a clumsy error there, then there could be some very significant impacts way beyond PR.
I love what you're saying.
I think this is becoming a very important topic, and just we talk about job destruction in the fourth industrial revolution, but actually this is about creating a whole new genre of people who need to consider these topics, and you're carving out a brand new role. I don't think I heard of the word ethics officer until I started talking to you, and obviously the dialogue around what Kay is doing. So it's very inspiring, Naz, and maybe to the viewers as well. What would be your advice to a young person now who's leaving university or college or even school, and they're looking at their first job? I mean, if they're going into the tech space, what advice would you give to someone like that who's wanting to start out in your footsteps, who's become inspired by you? What advice would you give them?
Thank you, Nick. I would say to any young person exploring a career path but doesn't yet know what's happening is to take what you are interested in right now and start exploring it by firstly reaching out. Do not be afraid to reach out to people, no matter how accomplished you think they are. Because people are people at the end of the day, and our inherent nature is to help someone else and to impart knowledge we've gained over the years. If you find that you are not connecting with that person well, maybe your energies just don't gel. Continue to talk to people until you find the person and small group of people who are willing to help you on your journey. Don't make the mistake, though, of relying on the other person so much that you expect them to do the work for you. They will guide you, and then you got to be resourceful, get out there, get your hands dirty, work hard, spend long nights researching and doing the necessary research, because when you go to speak to these people who are willingly giving you their time, and they are thought leaders or leaders, global leaders, they expect you to have a little bit of knowledge when you come to them. They're not solving your problems, they're helping guide you, and you are doing the problem solving and showing initiative. So Nick, I always look for that, especially with people I work with, is the resourcefulness, because that is what will take someone very far.
Oh, that's great, Naz. Well, look, just to wrap up, Naz, if anyone's really wanting to find out a little bit more about you and Socially Acceptable, what's the best website that they can search for and find more about you?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for that. Please first start by emailing me, naz@sociallyacceptable.co.za. We have a team behind us, some amazing researchers and thinkers on the team already, and I'm really excited for you to meet the rest of them. Our website is currently going through a rebrand. It's a very exciting phase for us. A rebrand of the logo, of who we are, our entire messaging, and the story will be released in the next month. So we're excited about the space. It's new beginnings for us, but reach out to me on Naz at Socially Acceptable, and I'm happy to take you through our portfolio.
That's great, Naz. And, really thank you for taking the time to put a talk together for us, Naz, at the show. Thanks for coming to the show, and thanks for being on AITV. Really appreciate it. And best wishes with your rebrand. And have a great year. And we'll see you next year at AI Expo Africa 2021 in whatever format we have to use, given the circumstances that will prevail. So, Naz, thanks very much for joining us.
Appreciate the opportunity so much, Nick. I wish you and the AI Expo team only more success and prosperity for every event you have from here on out, which you will be. And I'm very pleased to say that we are lifelong partners with you guys in doing all the work we need to do to pursue the outcomes for the better of South Africans as well as global citizens. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Appreciate it, Naz. Pleasure.